Hi everyone, today we're going to do a hamstring opener routine. This is great to do if you run a lot, if you weightlift a lot, or if you just have a little bit tighter hamstrings like I do. So we're gonna start at the top of our mat. When you're ready, grab a few blocks, especially if you're on the tighter side, and we are going to do something towards the end of class that will involve our legs up the wall. So if you have space near a wall, maybe just move your mat towards that. And if not, I'll show you a modification. Starting in Samastitihi, hands down by your side. Just take 3 deep breaths before we begin. On your next inhale, sweep your arms up, gaze is at the thumbs. Exhale, dive forward, release the neck. Inhale, flat back, which means straight legs, straight back. Exhale, hands to the mat and maybe just step back into your plank. Lower down into your chaturanga and inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Breathing here for 5 breaths. You can shorten the stance a little bit if you'd like. This is a great place to start to work on opening our hamstrings. So really working one day towards straightening out our legs, lifting our kneecaps. So shortening the stance helps with that. And sending our heels down towards the back edge of our mat, regardless or not if they meet. Take one more deep breath. And on your next inhale, look between your hands, bend your knees, and just step in between your hands, flat back again. And exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep the arms back up, gaze is at the thumbs, and exhale back down to Samastitihi. One more, Surya Namaskar A. Inhale, gaze up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, back to plank, or you can jump right back to chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. Breathing here again for 5 breaths. Sending your hips back, pushing your hips back, but maintaining integrity in your shoulders as you do so. So it's sort of like 2 opposing actions. The hips are going back, the hamstrings are opening, but you're pulling your chest forward at the same time. Gaze is in between your feet, in between your knees, sometimes all the way up at your navel, whatever is comfortable. Take one more deep breath. And on your next inhale, look between your hands, bend the knees, and jump to the front of your mat. Continue the inhale for your flat back, and then exhale, release, and fold. Inhale, ground down through the feet, gaze is at the thumbs, and exhale, release, Samastitihi. Surya Namaskar B. Inhale for a chair pose, gaze up, and exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. And exhale, back to chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, right leg comes forward in between your hands, left foot back on an angle as you come up for your warrior one. And you exhale right back down. You can go through your vinyasa. Back to down dog. And on your next inhale, your left foot steps forward. Warrior one on the left side, gaze up. And exhale back down. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. Breathe here again for 5 breaths. Pressing down through the index knuckle of the pointer finger, making sure that weight is evenly distributed between your palms. That's how I like to do it. And again, really engaging those quads so that you can get the most out of the hamstring opening here. I think down dog should be hard, right? It's not a resting pose. One more breath. Inhale, look between your hands, bend your knees, jump forward. Continue the inhale for your flat back. And exhale, fold. Inhale back to chair pose. Continue the inhale as you stand and exhale back to Samastitihi. We'll do one more like that. Inhale, chair pose, speeding it up just a little bit. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. And exhale, back to chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, right leg forward, warrior one. Exhale, back down. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. Inhale, left foot forward, warrior one. And exhale back down. Continue the exhale for your chaturanga, and then you inhale on your up dog. And exhale back to down dog. Breathe here for 3 breaths. And then inhale, look between your hands, bend your knees. Jump forward, flat back. Exhale, release, fold. Inhale, chair pose, coming up to stand. And exhale, Samastitihi. So hopefully you're a little warmed up. I'm a little out of breath. Let's take our feet a little bit further than hips distance apart. And we're gonna come do these forward fold pulses. So have the toes parallel with the edges of your mat and just come down into your forward fold. And here it's gonna be important to lock out the knees. And so for me, I can get my fingertips comfortably on the mat by doing that. You might wanna grab blocks and do it this way. I'm gonna set the blocks off to the side. And we're just gonna take these pulses back and forth. So you're shifting your weight forward and then you're going back. And we're gonna do that about 20 times. And if you can get your palms down, go for it, get the palms down. It's just important to pull lift the kneecaps up. That's how I turn my quads on. And I go forward and then I stop myself and push myself back. About 8 more. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Stop at a flat back and then just fold here. And then come back to your flat back. We're gonna do the same thing. Just take your feet, your toes now in the direction of a 45. And then again, same thing. Come forward and then shoot yourself back. And you don't have to make these big movements. We're just starting to get into the hamstrings, warming them up a little. Eight more. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Come up into your flat back. And exhale, fold. Bring the toes parallel. Place a little bit of a bend in the knee and then bring yourself up to stand. Bring the feet. I'm gonna leave this up to you. Tighter hamstring people, hips distance apart. If you're a little bit more open, then you can bring your toes to touch. I'm gonna stay hips distance apart. Again, here we're gonna focus on straight legs, locking out the knees. And when I say locking out the knees, if you know that you're somebody who can hyperextend the knees, be mindful of that and maybe have like a very little micro bend. Otherwise, lifting the kneecaps, your fingers are gonna come interlaced behind your head, and we're gonna have a nice big round in our back, which I know is usually a no-no. But we're focusing on opening up the entire back chain of our bodies. So from here, just take a big inhale. And then exhale, start to tuck your chin in. Slowly rounding through the spine. Going all the way down. And maybe your elbows come close to your knees. Maybe they can touch your knees. Maybe they can go above your knees. And then release, bend the knees, and come out. And we're gonna do that twice more. So big inhale at the top. And as you exhale, start to round in. And you should feel a really big stretch all the way down your back into the hamstrings. Trying to keep the hips over the feet, like mine kind of want to go back. Bend the knees to come up. And once more, inhale at the top. And exhale, round in. Bend the knees and come on up. Release the hands, shake that out. Maybe do a few shoulder rolls. And you can even interlace the hands behind you and do a little bit, just a little baby back bend. Good, release that. And we're going to come again to the top of our mat. I'm gonna keep my feet hips distance apart, and we're just gonna take a normal forward fold. So go ahead, start to hinge at the hip, fold down. Place your hands on the mat, on blocks, maybe on your shins. There are, differing schools of thought or approaches to this, to forward folding. If you are somebody who has pretty tight hamstrings, or you're like newer to yoga and flexibility, then a lot of people, you'll hear place a nice bend in your knees so that you can have a straight spine. And I think that's totally valid and true, because a lot of times we try to straighten our legs and we end up looking, something like this. And even for me, if I keep my legs really straight and I try to go all the way down, there's still like a bit of a round here, right? And I think there's always going to be a little bit of a round here, right? Because that's the way that our spine is shaped. But once you are at or around a certain level of flexibility, it really doesn't benefit you anymore to bend the knees, because the only way you're going to progress further is by straightening out the legs, by lengthening the hamstrings, or to lengthen the hamstrings, you have to engage the front or the opposite muscle, which here is our quads, the front of the hamstrings. So take a few more breaths. And then pressing down throughout the hands, pressing into the big toes, bring yourself back up. Good, let's take a vinyasa and get ourselves to a down dog. So inhale, gaze up. And exhale, fold once more. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, back to chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. From down dog, bring the right foot in between your hands. And we're going to come to this lunge position. So you can keep your hands framing your feet. Maybe just take a few pulses up and down, starting to open up into the back left hip flexor. And then we're going to straighten out that front leg for a wide pyramid pose. So here you can have blocks on either side of your hands, and you can keep these toes, the front toes, down, or you can lift them and dig that front heel into the ground. Trying to keep your shoulders square, your hips square to the mat. Take an inhale and lengthen your chest forward. And then exhale, maybe you fold a little bit deeper. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Good, rebend into the front leg, set the blocks off to the side, step it back into your plank, maybe do a quick vinyasa, and back to down dog. Opposite side, left foot comes forward. Again, framing your feet, keeping that chest nice and long, keeping the chest forward so that the spine is long. Take a few gentle pulses. And then we're going to send the hips back by straightening the front leg into a wide pyramid pose. Keeping the hips square, maybe you use the blocks again. Maybe you lift the front toes. And do a few of those inhales and exhales here. So inhale, you're straightening out the spine, you're lifting the chest. And exhale, once from that position, you can start to bring the chest up and then over the thigh. A few more times. Inhale, exhale. Once more, inhale and exhale. Good, rebend into the front leg, set the blocks off to the side. Back to a plank vinyasa. And back to down dog. From down dog, we're gonna go into a wide-legged fold. So just pick up the left foot, bring it to the top of our mat, come up into a quick crescent, and then just go ahead and turn to the right so that our feet, our toes are pointing to the right side of our mat. Have them in line with each other so they're on one plane. And have them parallel and maybe even in towards a little bit, or in, facing in a little bit. Just take a few breaths here, feeling really strong in the legs first before we bend. So we don't want to roll out into our ankles. I can show that by coming in a little bit. We don't want our big toes lifting off the ground, so we're sort of sickling into the ankles as we fold. We want to really feel strength running into our adductors, and to do that, we press into the big toes. So once you've found that strength, then we can begin to fold. So just take an inhale, make yourself a little bit taller, and exhale, start to fold forward. Place your hands on the mat, on blocks maybe. Inhale, lengthen out the chest again. And exhale, fold. Start to walk the hands back a little bit further. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, lengthen out the chest. And exhale, fold. Maybe you walk your hands back just a little bit more and make note of where your elbows are. Maybe they're sort of doing whatever they want. Can you bring them in so that they're sort of like chaturanga arms, right? Release your neck. If you can get your head all the way to the ground, you can do that too. If your head is really like smushed on the ground, then narrow your stance. One more deep breath. Inhale, flat back. Exhale here. Inhale, catch your waist, come up. And then just exhale to the top of your mat. Now we're going to go to the wall. So just have a seat, maybe move your mat to the wall. We are going to do a version of legs up the wall. And so you kind of have to shimmy around and have it so that your hips are exactly against the wall. And we're gonna start just in this normal fold position. And this is great because it sort of forces you to get into nice alignment. I love to do this like when I get home from a run or something, because this is all the energy I have left. But I'm forced to stretch my hamstrings. And so from here, your back literally can't round because there's the ground stopping it. And I can flex my feet and sort of use my hands to push my quads gently into the wall. And then we're going to start to open our feet out for our straddle. So here again, you've got to keep the legs nice and active. Maybe you use your hands on the outside edges of your thighs so that you don't go too fast too soon. Keep the feet flexed. And just go as far down as is comfortable. So here, yeah, I feel it in my hamstrings, but I also really start to feel it in my hip creases. I'm going to spend like 2 minutes here. If you feel, sort of like an uncomfortable pulling behind your knees, it's probably a good sign that you've gone a little bit too far. Just back off, come a little bit out of it, decrease your range of motion. The hardest thing to do and the thing that's going to make the biggest difference is to get our bodies to relax here. I definitely feel a little bit of, shaking and a little bit of hip clenching going on, which is normal. But if I want this area to open up, I've got to find a way to relax. And the best way to do that is to use your breath. Maybe you've started to find a little bit of that ease. And if you have, maybe you go just a little bit deeper. It's really an incremental thing. When you're ready to come out of it, we're going to take our hands to the outside edges of our thighs. We're going to flex through the feet again and use our hands to guide our heels together. Go ahead and just bend the knees, shift your hips away from the wall, and we're going to come up to seated. So we're going to take that same fold on the ground now. So bring your feet in front of you, and they can be sort of at a 90-degree angle, or if you want to go just a little bit wider, it's up to you. And here, we're just going to stay upright first. So just kind of like we were doing against the wall, right? Our spine was in this position. Maybe you want to play around. I like to lift my sit bones off the ground and bring them back down. And play around with where feels best and where do I feel, like grounded and heavy in the hips. And here our inclination might be to have this interior tilt in the pelvis, especially when we start to fold forward, because that helps get our torso down more. And depending on what you're doing, that's, again, totally fine. But I just want you to focus more on trying to have your kneecaps and like the top, if there's a line running from your kneecaps to your hips, like that line pointed up towards the sky. And so a good way to do that is, again, to just flex the feet, point the toes up to the sky. And as you do that, do your femurs, does everything just kind of want to like suck back in? It's that like nervous system again, you know, like that hip clenching. Can you engage everything while also asking it to lengthen? These aren't beginner cues. So, you know, maybe you're listening to my words and you're saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, or no, like I understand what you're talking about, but actually no, I cannot get my body to do that. And then from here, if you'd like to start to fold forward, again, just seeing what it feels like to not bring your pelvis with you, to not have that interior tilt. So maybe I have to keep my hands on my thighs and like roll them back a little bit as I fold. And I'm not going nearly as far down as I would. And then if you want to release that, let the pelvis go and walk the hands forward. You can play with that option too. Just know or be aware of what you're doing, and maybe also know why you're doing it. Whenever you're ready, you can slowly come up. I like to take my hands, again, like sort of underneath my knees, but a little bit higher. Bring my heels together. And we'll do a quick counter release. We're gonna go for a supported bridge. So take one block, if you have it, and we're just gonna place it. If you don't have it, you can just come into like a constructive rest pose, sort of just like this. But it's gonna feel pretty good to open up the body in the opposite direction. So take your block and place it underneath your sacrum. And so by your sacrum, I like definitely do not mean your lower back, because if I place this here, like that feels terrible. It's like right underneath your hip points. And you can stay here in this bridge pose, or you can start to straighten out the legs. And just have a little bit of hip flexor opening. Maybe you want the block on a lower height, and you can also play around with putting the block on a higher height, the highest height. I really like to do this when I prep for back bends. And so when the hip block is on the highest height, I put it on the narrow side. Yeah. Sort of have it running like parallel. And then I'll crawl my feet out from there. You can choose to stay there as long as you'd like. That was our last movement for the day. And just, so nobody is discouraged. Hamstrings are just a very slow area to open up, and you're gonna see the most progress if you are consistent with it. So this is something that, you don't necessarily need to do every single day because that's really hard, but the more you do it, the more progress and the faster progress you're gonna see. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon.